What if the future of leadership is not louder, faster, or more dominant? What if it is calmer, clearer, and more adaptive? For a long time, leadership has been defined in a very narrow way. We often imagine leaders as decisive, forceful, and highly confident people who take charge quickly and move others through strength. And in some situations, that style can absolutely work. But modern organizations are changing. Work is more cross functional, teams are more global, problems are more complex, authority is more distributed. And in that environment, leadership based only on forces starts to break down because complex systems do not respond well to control alone. They require coordination, they require trust, they require influence. And that is why I believe the future of leadership is quiet power. By quiet power, I do not mean weak leadership. I do not mean passive leadership. And I definitely do not mean avoiding difficult decisions. I mean a different kind of strength, the strength to remain calm under pressure, the strength to influence without always relying on authority, the strength to navigate conflict without turning everything into combat. In other words, the strength to lead without force. This idea is deeply connected to Taoist philosophy. Lao Tzu wrote, "The soft overcomes the hard." That line can sound poetic, but I think it is also practical. Because the more complex a system becomes, the less useful brute force tends to be. You can push people, but you cannot force real alignment. You can pressure teams, but you cannot command trust. You can dominate a conversation, but you cannot guarantee wisdom. Quiet power works differently. It works through presence, influence, and harmony. Presence means you are not easily destabilized. In a tense meeting, you do not immediately react. You stay clear. You think before you speak. People feel steadier around you because you are steady yourself. Influence means you can share direction without needing to overpower people. You know how to frame a problem. You know how to ask the right question. You know how to connect your idea to what others care about. Harmony means you can stay in conflict without becoming destructive. You do not avoid disagreement, but you do not feed chaos either. You help a group move forward without increasing unnecessary friction. These are not soft skills in the dismissive sense. These are leadership skills for complexity. And I think many organization skills underestimate them because they are harder to measure than confidence or charisma. But if you've worked in real teams long enough, you've probably seen this. The leader who talks the most is not always the one people trust the most. The leader who pushes the hardest is not always the one who gets the best long-term result. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who helps everyone think more clearly. That is quiet power. I think this matters especially for thoughtful professionals, for people who are reflective, for people who are capable but not naturally performative. For people who do not want to become louder just to survive organizational life. Too often, they are told that to lead, they need to become someone else. More aggressive, more political, more dominant. But I think that is the wrong lesson. The world may not need more domination dressed up as leadership. It may need a more mature kind of leadership altogether, a form of leadership that is more stable, more relational, and more aware of systems. That is part of what I mean by soft power leadership, not less leadership, better leadership for the reality of modern work. So, what does this mean in practice? It means developing 3 capacities. First, the ability to stay centered. Before you can lead others, you need to regulate yourself. Second, the ability to create alignment. You need to influence across teams, functions, and personalities. Third, the ability to navigate tension. Because leadership in complexity always involves disagreement, and the quality of your leadership is often revealed most clearly when things are not smooth. If you can do these 3 things, stay centered, create alignment, and navigate tension, you are already practicing the future of leadership. And you do not need to become louder to do it. You need to become clearer, more grounded, more deliberate. In many ways, this is not a completely new idea. It is old wisdom becoming newly relevant. For centuries, traditions like Taoism have pointed toward forms of strength that are not based on domination. Strength that bends instead of breaks. Strength that guides instead of crushes. Strength that works with reality instead of trying to overpowering it. In a complex world, that kind of leadership may become not just admirable, but necessary. So, if you've ever felt the mainstream leadership advice does not fully fit you, maybe the problem is not you. Maybe the model is too narrow. Maybe leadership has been defined for too long by the loudest voice in the room. And maybe the future belongs, at least in part, to a different kind of leader. Not weaker, not passive, but quieter, steadier, and more deeply influential. If you want the essay behind this idea, I've linked it below. The future of leadership may not be louder voices. It may be quiet power. Thank you for watching. See you next time.